I moved into my new neighborhood about 3 weeks ago. I thought it would be perfect, a quiet suburban area with nice houses and tall oak trees. I was excited for a fresh start after my breakup. I just wanted to focus on my work as a software developer. The first few nights were calm. I set up my cozy two-bedroom at the end of the cul-de-sac. But on the third night, something strange happened. I heard a faint tapping on the wall. At first, I thought it was just the plumbing, but it felt different. It was rhythmic, like someone was doing it on purpose. A chill ran down my spine. After that night, the tapping continued. It got louder each night, mixed with a low humming. I felt uneasy. The next day, I saw my neighbor pacing in his yard at odd times. He'd stare at my window. It made my stomach drop. Was he watching me? I tried to convince myself he was just an odd guy. Things got weirder. One evening, I was working late, lit only by my computer screen. I heard whispers from next door. It sounded like they were talking about me. I couldn't make out many words, but I caught, "He's here," and "We must be careful." My heart raced. Was I being paranoid? I tried to shake it off, but it stuck to me like glue. As days passed, I couldn't shake the feeling that the noises and glances were part of something strange. Every little sound made my heart race. I caught my neighbor gazing at me again, this time right from his window. I wanted to confront him, but I couldn't find the words. It felt crazy. There were more whispers that night. "He's still here." Each word pierced through the walls like ice. I felt so confused between being paranoid and knowing something was off. I didn't know what to think. Then, one night, everything changed. I was getting ready for bed when I saw him, standing there, outside my window. He just stood still, staring at me in the dark. My heart pounded. I felt frozen, like I couldn't move at all. I wanted to call out, to ask if he was okay. But when I finally blinked, he was gone. Just shadows where he had been. My hands were sweaty. I tried to convince myself it was nothing, but sleep was impossible. The tapping, the whispering, the watching continued. It was all so unsettling. My fear was all-consuming. The next day, I saw him again, pacing. I felt his eyes on me like a weight I couldn't lift. I often wonder what was happening next door. Was I just imagining it, or was there something sinister going on? I wanted to believe it was all in my head, but those encounters, they still confuse me to this day. Every creak in the house makes me jump. I can't shake the feeling that someone's still watching me. I decided that I had to do something. I couldn't just sit back and let my imagination spiral. I needed answers. That morning, I put on a brave face and walked outside. The sun was shining, but it felt like it was mocking me. I glanced at my neighbor's house and saw him in the yard again, this time raking leaves. I took a deep breath. Maybe today was the day I could finally talk to him. As I approached, he looked up and smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Hey there," he said, his voice almost too cheerful. "Hi, I just wanted to say hello." The words felt forced. He nodded, then pointed at the leaves. "Keeping it tidy around here, you know how it is." I wanted to ask him about the tapping and the whispers, but the question stuck in my throat. Instead, I made small talk. "Nice place you have." But he only shrugged, eyes darting back to his work. His evasiveness sent a wave of unease through me. When I turned to leave, I couldn't shake the feeling he was watching me again, like I was a puzzle he wanted to solve. That evening, as darkness fell, the tapping started up again, louder than before. I switched on the lights and tried to drown it out with music, but the low hum was still there, creeping under the notes. I had enough. I grabbed my phone, determined to record the sound, something to prove I wasn't imagining it. I set it down by the wall and left the room for a moment. When I returned, the recording light was blinking. It captured something, I thought, excitement and fear bubbling together. I couldn't wait to hear it. But suddenly, I froze. The whispers.
They were clearer now, overlapping each other. A shiver ran down my spine. My phone was still recording. I leaned closer to hear what they were saying. "He must not know," one voice said. Another responded, "It's too late now." I felt sick. I grabbed my phone and stopped the recording, my hands trembling. I wanted to scream. The whisper sounded alive, like they were weaving around the walls. I paced the room, fighting the urge to bolt out of the house. A slap against my window made me jump. I turned, breath caught in my throat. My heart sank. It was him again, standing there in the shadows, just outside my window. My instinct screamed at me to run, to hide. Instead, I stood frozen, staring back at him. He held out something small in his hand. It glinted in the dim light. The moment felt suspended, thick with dread. Before I could think, he mouthed one word: "Help." Then, just like that, he was gone, disappeared into the dark. I blinked, trying to process. Was he asking for help, or was it a part of whatever he had going on? My mind raced, piecing together what had happened.
I couldn't back down now. That night, the uneasy feeling morphed into determination. I picked up my phone again, my heart racing as I considered what I had to do next. I needed to dig deeper. Maybe I would start with the whispers. Perhaps there was a connection between my neighbor's strange behavior and the things I had heard. I had to confront this once and for all. Maybe tomorrow I would find out where those whispers were coming from. The next day, I woke up feeling like I was on the edge of something. I had to know more about my neighbor and those whispers. I grabbed a notebook and jotted down everything I remembered. I needed a plan. I decided to start with the small things. Maybe I could learn a bit about my neighbor's life from other people in the area. After breakfast, I walked to the nearest shop, hoping to run into familiar faces. The smell of coffee and bread filled the air, momentarily distracting me from my racing thoughts. As I entered, I spotted a couple of locals chatting near the counter. I took a deep breath and approached them. "Hey, do you know much about the guy who lives next door to me?" One of them, a woman named Karen, raised an eyebrow. "You mean the one with the strange yard?" I nodded, wary of how much to reveal. "Yeah, he seems a bit off." Karen exchanged a glance with her friend. "He's been through a lot," she said softly. "People say he lost someone a while back. Since then, he hasn't been the same." Her words sent a chill through me. Loss could change a person, but it didn't explain the whispers or the tapping. I pressed on. "Does he ever talk to anyone?" "Not really, just keeps to himself," she replied, shrugging. "But sometimes at night you can hear strange noises coming from his house." My heart raced. She had corroborated what I'd experienced. "What kind of noises?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "Like whispers mixed with something else. It's hard to describe," the man replied, glancing at Karen. "You stay clear of him, you hear? It's better that way." Their dismissive tone didn't help my anxiety. I wanted to know more, to dig in deeper, but I felt their caution. I left the shop, my mind spinning. Once home, I couldn't ignore the impulse to record again. I set my phone up near the window and prepared to listen. I waited, straining to hear anything unusual, but all I got was silence. That is, until the sun dipped behind the horizon. Just as darkness settled in, the whispers returned, soft but unmistakable. I grabbed my phone to hit record but hesitated. What if my neighbor came back? What if he knew I was spying? But curiosity won out. I pressed the button, leaning close to the window. "Too late for him," one voice said. "Not just him."
Another whispered back. Panic surged. I couldn't make out everything they were saying, but the fear was palpable, almost tangible. Suddenly, there was a loud bang at my door. I jumped, nearly dropping my phone. Heart pounding, I opened the door just a crack. It was my neighbor, looking even more disheveled than before. "Please," he breathed, glancing over his shoulder, "you have to come with me." There was a frantic edge to his voice, and a chill gripped my heart. What was going on? "Why?" I managed, feeling the skin prickling on the back of my neck. "Because they're coming for you, too," he said, his eyes wild. "You don't understand." Before I could react, he turned and ran down the path, disappearing into the shadows. My breath caught in my throat. There was no time to consider my options. If I didn't follow him, would I be next? I grabbed my jacket and bolted after him, my heart racing with both fear and the thrill of the unknown. I sprinted after him, the cool night air biting at my skin. The streetlights cast long shadows that danced as I dashed down the path. I struggled to keep sight of him. He was fast and agile, his figure blending into the darkness. "Wait!" I shouted, but my voice was swallowed by the quiet. After what felt like an eternity, I finally caught up with him by a small grove of trees just beyond the neighborhood. The moonlight caught his face as he turned, panic etched in his features. "Why are we out here?" I asked, gasping for breath. He shook his head, glancing around as if expecting someone to jump out from behind the trees. "They can hear us," he whispered. "You need to know the truth." "What truth?" I pressed, my heart pounding in my chest. "What's going on?" He took a deep breath, his eyes darting to the shadows. "I shouldn't be telling you this," he murmured, "but you're already in it. It started when Suddenly, he stopped speaking and stared into the dark trees. My stomach twisted. "What is it?" He raised a finger to his lips, signaling me to be quiet. The whispers had returned, this time clearer than before. I strained to listen, fear coiling in my stomach. "Sacrifice is needed. The time is near." One voice drifted through the chilly air, soft but clear. "Fate has chosen, not much longer to wait," another echoed, a sharper tone lacing the words. I glanced at my neighbor, who was trembling slightly, his eyes wild with terror. "They're speaking about you," he said, voice trembling. "They know you're listening." Before I could react, something shifted in the darkness. A shape emerged, gliding between the trees. No face, just a dark figure, almost blending into the night. I felt a jolt of panic shoot through me. "What is that?" I whispered, grabbing his arm. "I don't know," he replied, straining to keep his eyes on the darkness.
Figure, but it knows. The figure stepped closer, and the whispers grew louder. "Time to choose," it hissed, the words echoing unnaturally around us. I felt a deep chill wash over me. This wasn't just strange anymore. It was downright terrifying. "We have to go," I urged, trying to pull my neighbor back toward the path. But he remained rooted in place, eyes locked on the entity. "If we don't confront it, it will come for us," he said, trembling. I could feel something pulling at me. A sense of dread and urgency flared in my chest. "Confront it? Are you out of your mind?" "Please trust me. We need to know what it wants," he insisted, stepping forward. That's when I noticed a faint glow emanating from where the figure stood. It pulsed like a heartbeat, and I felt an irresistible urge to move closer. My instinct screamed at me to run, but how could I abandon him? Then everything went dark. The world around us faded into shadows, as if the night had swallowed it whole. My breath quickened as a low hum filled the air. Now I had no choice. I couldn't turn back. I took a deep breath and stepped forward, my heart racing. What awaited me in that darkness? I had to find out. I stepped into the dark, my instincts battling against my curiosity. The air was thick and heavy, pressing against my chest like a weight. I could barely see, but I felt my neighbor beside me, his presence a mix of fear and determination. "Where are we going?" I whispered, unsure of what lay ahead. "We have to find out what it wants," he said, his voice firm yet quaking. "And maybe it can help us." "Help?
The notion sent chills down my spine. Nothing about this felt helpful. I strained to see the figure, but it was like trying to catch shadows. The low hum vibrated in my bones, disorienting me. Then, without warning, the darkness cleared. I found myself in a clearing illuminated by that eerie glow. The figure stood at the center, its form just a silhouette against the light. It reached out a limb, elongated and twisted, as if gesturing for us to come closer. "Stay back," I hissed, instinctively pulling my neighbor behind me. But he didn't budge. "We have to listen," he urged again. "We can't ignore this." The whispers began anew, swirling around us like a storm. "You've come. You've chosen." Each phrase laced with a chilling melody. I felt my heart race faster, each beat echoing with dread. "I can't do this," I shouted, ignoring the burn in my throat. "This is madness." The figure's glow pulsed brighter, illuminating intricate symbols etched into the ground beneath it. They twisted and turned, moving like they were alive. My gaze locked onto one symbol in particular, a circle intertwined with a line pointing directly at us. "What does it mean?" I asked, fear creeping into.
"It's a sign of fate," my neighbor answered, entranced by the display. "We need to understand." Before I could respond, the figure spoke, its voice a haunting echo. "To know is to decide. To decide is to change." "What does that mean?" I pleaded, adrenaline coursing through my veins. I couldn't shake the feeling that the figure was weaving something around us, drawing us into a web we couldn't escape. As if sensing my fear, it leaned closer, and I felt a rush of cold whip through me. "Choose," it said, the word reverberating around the clearing. "Your sacrifice, or your neighbor's. The cycle must continue." I staggered back, my mind racing. Sacrifice? My stomach churned. This was not what I signed up for. How could this entity ask us to choose like that? "No, no way. I'm not playing this game," I spat, glancing at my neighbor, whose face was pale and strained. But he only stared at the dark figure, as if trying to decipher its intention. Just then, the hum grew to a deafening crescendo, overwhelming and chaotic. My hands shook, and panic clawed at my insides. I realized I needed to act, to break this trance. With a sudden burst of energy, I grabbed my neighbor's arm and yanked him back. "Let's go," I shouted. But as we turned to flee, the figure shrieked, "You cannot hide. The choice is required." I stumbled back into the darkness, dragging my neighbor with me. Each step felt like running against an invisible force, as if the shadows threatened to pull us down into a void. And just when I thought we had escaped, I heard it again, a whisper, this time behind me, chilling my blood. "The choice will come again." Suddenly, I stopped. What choice? What would it demand of us next? The haunting uncertainty lingered in the air as we raced deeper into the night, questions spiraling through my mind. As my breath grew uneven, I realized that the night had only just begun. I ran, adrenaline flooding my system. My neighbor pushed forward too, his grip tighter around my wrist. Our footsteps echoed in the stillness, each sound a reminder that we were running from something we didn't fully understand. The forest around us was thick, branches clawing at our clothes like desperate fingers. I glanced back, half expecting to see the figure pursuing us, but the clearing was just an empty space in the shadows now. Still, I could feel its presence lingering, an invisible weight pressing down on us. "We need to find a way out," I gasped, my breath coming in quick bursts. "We can't just keep running blindly." My neighbor nodded, his face a mask of panic. "Let's head back toward the houses. We'll be safe there." "Safe?" I scoffed, the word tasting bitter.
After what happened, how can we possibly be safe? He ran a hand through his hair, frustration evident. What other choice do we have? We can't stay.
In this nightmare! Just then, the ground beneath us shifted. A low rumble vibrated through the earth, and I stumbled, catching myself before I fell. Did you feel that? Yeah, he said, looking around nervously. What just happened? Before I could answer, a flash of light burst through the trees, momentarily blinding me. I shielded my eyes, then peered into the brightness. It wasn't the clearing, but another figure. This one was smaller, more delicate, standing at the edge of our path. My heart sank. What is that? I don't know, my neighbor replied, stepping cautiously toward it. We should see. Are you insane? It could be another trick, I shouted, but he was already approaching, drawn in by some unseen force. A soft humming filled the air again, but this time it was different. It was melodic, almost soothing, in stark contrast to the haunting noise from before. Come closer, the new figure said, its voice soft and inviting. The glow around it flickered like candlelight. I could see that it had features, a gentle face with eyes that sparkled like stars. Don't go, I pleaded, my voice rising in urgent panic. There was something off about this figure, too. I didn't trust it. But my neighbor didn't listen. He took another step forward. It might know something. We need answers. And what if it's a trap? I cried. My instinct screamed at me to pull him back, to shake him out of this trance. But he was already mesmerized, like a moth to a flame. Everything you seek is here, the figure whispered, glancing back at me with a hint of sorrow in those luminous eyes. You can escape the choices you dread. But what must be done first is to understand. Understand what? I shouted, desperation rising in my throat. You think we want to sacrifice anyone? We want to get away from all of this. And then something shifted again. The figure's gentle demeanor faded just for a moment, replaced by a flicker of something darker. The cycle must be honored. With that, a wave of icy dread washed over me. My neighbor stood frozen, entranced, as I fought against the urge to flee. Listen to me, I screamed, my voice echoing in the stillness around us. You are being manipulated. We need to leave. Before I could snatch him away, the ground began to tremble once more. The outline of the first figure appeared again, looming behind the delicate one, casting a shadow that swallowed the light. Your time grows short, it hissed, its voice echoing in the darkness. What will you choose? That was when I realized the truth. The choice lay before us, not just in the clearing, but right here, right now. My heart raced as I fought against a tide of fear, desperation mixing with a fierce determination. I felt a surge within me. Whatever was happening, I wasn't going down without a fight. Run, I shouted. Split-second decision, I lunged toward my neighbor. It was now or never. But the ground shook again, and this time I saw a deep crack splitting the earth between us and the figures. Choose, the soft voice echoed, as everything around us began to twist, like reality was fraying at its edges. But I would not yield, not now, not to this darkness. I grabbed my neighbor's arm and bolted, and as we sprinted toward the trees, I felt the crushing weight of the night breathe down our necks, and I knew that whatever awaited us behind, it wouldn't be over yet. I could still hear that eerie melody echoing in my ears as we ran deeper into the forest, the shadows consuming us like hungry spirits. The frantic pounding of my heart matched our rapid footsteps, but there was a small flicker of hope in me. The urge to believe we could escape. Are they following us? My neighbor shouted, glancing back over his shoulder. I don't know, I responded, trying to suppress a rising panic. Just keep moving. We dashed through the underbrush, pushing past ferns and low-hanging branches. Each crackling leaf underfoot felt like an alarm in the silence, as if any sound might alert whatever hunted us. I could feel the weight of the darkness pressing in, making it hard to see the path ahead even in the dim moonlight filtering through the treetops. Suddenly, we stumbled into a small clearing. "What is this place?" I asked, panting heavily. The familiar comfort of home seemed so far away now. An ancient oak stood at the center, its gnarled roots twisting awkwardly through the grass, almost as if they were trying to escape the earth itself. My neighbor caught his breath and looked up, his eyes widening. "There's something carved in the trunk." I stepped closer, squinting in the darkness. Symbols and letters swirled together in chaotic patterns. Some I recognized, like a spiral and a triangle, but others were foreign, like the language of ancient spirits. "Is it a warning?" I asked, tracing my fingers over the grooves. "Or a message?" he murmured, his curiosity pulling him to the tree. "Maybe it tells us what's happening." I wanted to scream at him to move. The figures were still fresh in my mind, their shadowy forms lingering like cobwebs in the corners of my thoughts. "We shouldn't be here. We need to find a way out." But he was already lost in the symbols, his eyes reflecting a strange light that made my skin crawl. "What if it leads us to safety? What if it can tell us what to do next?" "This is crazy," I urged, feeling the familiar sense of betrayal rise. "You can't trust anything anymore." Then, as if summoned by our argument, the air around us thickened. A chilling wind swept through the clearing, rattling the leaves and sending a shiver down my spine. The symbols seemed to glow faintly, pulsating in rhythm with the hum that was building in the background. "We have to go, now," I whispered urgently, but he kept staring at the tree as if it held some great revelation. And then, without warning, the ground trembled again. My heart dropped. The same crack tore open beneath our feet, widening like an insatiable mouth ready to swallow us whole. "Run!" I yelled, grabbing his arm and pulling him back. He flinched, but finally seemed to snap out of his trance. Just as we turned to bolt, a figure emerged from the shadows, blocking our escape. It was the same haunting shape we had seen before, tall and shrouded in darkness, a twisted smile pulling at its lips. "You cannot escape the choice," it hissed, voice dripping with malice. I dropped my neighbor's wrist, stumbling back, fear overtaking my resolve. "What choice?" I demanded. "What must we do?" The figure stepped closer, and I could feel a cold wave wash over me, filled with dread and power. "The cycle binds you," it whispered, "but only you can break it." I looked at my neighbor, a question echoing in my mind. What cycle? But before I could grasp his answer, I felt the ground quake beneath my feet once more, and I was unsure which way to run as chaos enveloped the forest around us. In that moment, everything changed. The ground shook violently, and I felt my legs almost buckle beneath me. I grabbed on to the gnarled trunk of the oak tree just to keep my balance. The figure loomed closer, its chilling presence seeming to absorb the light around us. I had no idea what to do next. "Run!" I shouted again, trying to pull my neighbor toward the edge of the clearing. But he hesitated, eyes still glued to the figure. "We can't stick around. Move!" Finally his feet reacted, and together we fled toward the surrounding darkness. I could hear the whisper of the figure behind us, echoing through the trees. "The choice will come. You cannot hide." We pushed deeper into the woods, branches clawing at us as we rushed past. I felt my breath turn ragged. My mind was racing. What choice? What cycle?
I didn't have answers, but I felt the weight of unanswered questions closing in around us. Then we broke into another clearing, this one much smaller and eerie in its stillness. A decrepit cabin stood in the center, its windows dark and empty. It looked abandoned, but something pulled me toward it. I glanced at my neighbor, who looked just as torn. "Should we go inside?" he asked, uncertainty tinging his voice. I gulped, weighing the risks. It might be safer than being out here. Whatever that thing is, it knows we're out here. We approached the cabin slowly, the floor creaking ominously beneath our steps as we neared the front door. I pushed it open, and it swung wide, releasing a stale gust of air that felt more like a warning. Inside, the
Darkness enveloped us again. I could barely make out the outlines of furniture. Shadows danced in the corners, seeming to reach for us. I stepped in further, both curious and terrified. I needed to know, but I also wanted to run. Then I saw it, a candle flickering on a table. I walked closer, heart racing, and realized the table was covered in symbols similar to those on the tree. "These are the same," I murmured, feeling a sense of dread spiral. "What does it mean?" my neighbor asked, peering over my shoulder. Before I could answer, a loud noise shattered the air, like a door slamming shut. We whipped around, instinctively backing away from the source. Then, from behind a tattered curtain, another figure emerged. This one was not dark, but illuminated, its features sharp and unclear. "You awaken the past." It spoke softly, but the intensity in its eyes was overwhelming. "What?" I gasped. My heart raced even faster. The figure stepped closer, and I felt my breath hitch. "The choice you face has been made before. You must understand what binds you." My neighbor asked, peering over my shoulder. Before I could answer, a loud noise shattered the air, like a door slamming shut. We whipped around, instinctively backing away from the source. Then, from behind a tattered curtain, another figure emerged. This one was not dark, but illuminated, its features sharp and unclear. "You awaken the past." It spoke softly, but the intensity in its eyes was overwhelming. "What?" I gasped. My heart raced even faster. The figure stepped closer, and I felt my breath hitch. "The choice you face has been made before. You must understand what binds you." My mind was spinning again. The cycle? Was this some sort of twisted game? My instincts screamed to escape, but I needed answers. "What binds us?" I pressed, desperation edging my tone. The figure tilted its head, the light illuminating glimpses of deep scars across its arms. "You are part of the cycle. The past echoes in you." Just then, my neighbor grabbed my arm, eyes wide with horror. "I can't do this! I can't!" We stumbled back, but I knew deep down that we couldn't just run away from whatever this was. There had to be a way to break free. As we backed away, a sudden crash echoed from behind us. The door flew open with a violent gust of wind, slamming against the wall. I turned, ready to bolt, but then everything changed again. That was when I heard the melody return. Soft and haunting, rising above the panic, it called to me, stronger now. I felt as if it was weaving through the darkness, drawing me toward it. The choice was coming, and I had to make it fast. The melody wrapped itself around me, pulling at my very core. I felt a strange urge to move toward it, almost as if it was answering questions I didn't even know I had. I glanced back at my neighbor, who still stood frozen in fear. "Come on," I shouted, the urgency bleeding into my voice. "We need to—" Before I could finish, the illuminated figure raised a hand, the light intensifying around it. "You must listen," it urged.
This choice is not yours alone. What do you mean? I managed to stammer, feeling both compelled and terrified. Each of you must confront the truth. The cycle will not break without understanding. The figure's voice hung heavy in the air, mingling with the haunting melody that felt like it was dancing through the room.
I darted my gaze around the cabin, looking for something, anything. That's when I saw it. On the table, among the strange symbols, lay an old, dusty book. The pages were yellowed and torn. My heart raced. Wait, the book! Don't touch anything, my neighbor hissed, panic written across his face. I reached out anyway, flipping it open to a random page. The words sprawled across the paper, scrawled in chaotic handwriting. But one sentence caught my eye. To understand the past, one must face their own shadow. My stomach twisted. What does that even mean? Before I could contemplate it further, the haunting melody shifted, growing more discordant, like a warning. The illuminated figure stepped closer, the scars on its arms somehow becoming more visible. They looked like vines, snaking down toward its hands. Time is running out. Choose, it declared. I could feel the walls vibrating with an unearthly energy. Something was awakening. In the shadows, the darkness shifted. I caught fleeting movements, like whispers darting just out of reach. I felt the weight of eyes on me, dozens, perhaps hundreds. What are they? I gasped, my voice barely above a whisper. The echoes of the past, the figure replied, stepping back slightly as if to let the darkness seep in closer. You are surrounded by those who faced the cycle before. Their choices bind them to this place. A chill ran down my spine, and I suddenly felt trapped, suffocated by the reality that loomed around us. I turned back to the book, flipping through the pages frantically. A sudden rush of air whipped through the cabin, scattering the pages as the melody rose to a climactic pitch. It was disorienting. Then it stopped. Silence. Get ready, the figure said, its voice a steady calm amidst the chaos. You must confront what you fear the most. Before I could even process what it meant, the walls around us shimmered and the entire cabin transformed. We now stood in a different clearing, the cabin gone, replaced by a vast echoing forest where shadows twirled under the moonlight. Figures flickered through the trees like dry leaves in a gust of wind. Where are we? I demanded, heart racing as the intensity of the moment crashed over me. This is where the cycle must be faced, the figure said, standing at a distance, merely a silhouette against the bright moon. The choice is yours, but beware, for only one of you can escape. I felt my breath hitch. Fear swept over me, and in that instant I realized this was more than a game. It was a reckoning, and I had to make a choice, one that would possibly define not just my fate, but my neighbor's as well. As shadows closed in around us, I took a step forward, my heart pounding. What do I have to do? And then everything went dark. I blinked, and suddenly I found myself alone in the clearing. The figure was gone, the shadows momentarily receding. As if they too were waiting for something to unfold. Panic flooded my senses. "Where is he?" I shouted, but my voice echoed back to me, hollow and empty. I felt a chill creeping up my spine. It was overwhelming, an ache of loneliness wrapping tightly around me. "Please," I cried out again, desperation lacing my voice. "Where's my neighbor?" But there was no answer, just the rustle of leaves and the haunting silence of the night. Then the whispers returned, soft at first, then building into a cacophony. You must choose. You cannot escape. Only one may survive. Each phrase pounded in my chest, a painful reminder of the stakes. The shadows shifted around me, and then I saw him. My neighbor emerged from the trees, his eyes wide and panicked. Relief flooded through me.
But it was short-lived as I noticed the figures materializing behind him, spirits weaving in and out of the darkness, their whispers indistinguishable, becoming a haunting chorus. "Are you okay?" I hurried to him, desperation tinging my words. "What happened? What did you see?" He shook his head, eyes darting around as if searching for something. "I don't know. I thought I was lost. They were everywhere." His voice trembled. "They know our fears. They're feeding off of them." I let out a shaky breath, trying to collect my thoughts. "But we have to make a choice. We can't let this cycle continue." The realization hit me hard. We have to decide. "Decide what?" he said, his voice holding a quiver of uncertainty. The shadows flickered again, closing in tighter around us. "About who stays and who goes," I whispered, the weight of my words sinking into the air between us. He turned away, a profound sadness in his eyes. "That's insane. I can't choose your fate." I stepped closer. "But what other way is there? It said only one of us can escape." The shadows danced restlessly, their whispers intensifying, threatening to drown out our thoughts. What if the cycle can't be broken by sacrifice? What if we need to confront it together? The desperation in my voice was palpable. Before he could respond, the ground trembled again, and suddenly we were back in the cabin, together but suffocated by walls closing in around us. "You must confront your truth," the illuminated figure's voice came back, echoing in the air. "I can't do it," my neighbor choked out. "I won't." He looked at me, fear clawing at his features. "You don't have to go through this because of me. I'm not worth it." I felt anger bubble up in my chest. "This isn't about worth. We can break free together." But the shadows coiled closer, their whispers turning into a shriek. "Time is almost over. Make your choice." The weight of everything crashed over me. "Wait, both of us don't need to sacrifice ourselves, do we?" But as soon as I said it, the cacophony of voices grew louder, drowning out reason, drowning out hope. "Please!" I shouted, but the air thickened with panic. I turned to my neighbor, desperation clawing at me. "We can fight it, together!" He hesitated, uncertainty washing over him. "But what if it doesn't work? There's no guarantee that doing nothing will get us out of here either." In that moment, something shifted in the shadows. The whispering grew sharper, as if the entities were lurking close, ready to pounce. I swallowed hard. We have only one choice to make, the choice to fight this, to stand against whatever holds us here. Trembling, he looked deep into my eyes. I could see the flicker of resolve starting to glimmer within him. "Okay," he said softly, a breath reverberating the heavy air. "Together." I nodded fiercely, the shadows now wavering, unsure of how to react to our defiance. "We stand against the cycle," I proclaimed, and as the words left my lips, I felt a shift around us. Suddenly, everything erupted. The shadows faded, merging with the darkness of the trees surrounding us. The trees themselves groaned, branches falling like dominoes. The eerie melody of the spirits resonated violently as if protesting against our decision. And then, in an explosive flash of light, the clearing erupted into sheer brightness. It engulfed everything, a deafening roar sounding as I clutched my neighbor's hand tightly. As the brilliance engulfed us, I felt a pull, a riptide dragging us back and forth until my vision faded into blinding white light. Then, silence. When I opened my eyes, I blinked in disbelief. I was back home, standing in my living room. Everything was as it had been, almost too still. The faint hum of electrical appliances filled the air, and outside, a soft breeze rustled the leaves of the oak trees lining the street. But I felt altered, as if some part of me had shifted inexplicably. "No," I murmured, glancing around. Was it real? Did we escape? But there was no answer, just the unsettling quiet. I approached the window, peering outside. The neighborhood was serene, ordinary, yet shadows lingered in the corners of my mind, whispering questions I couldn't quite grasp. My heart raced as I realized that mystery remained. Where was he? What had we truly done? Had we conquered the cycle or merely stirred it from its slumber? I took a deep breath, stepping away from the window, the question swirling in my mind like remnants of a fading dream. I couldn't shake the feeling that whatever choice we made, it wasn't the end. As I stepped outside, the weight of uncertainty followed, and deep down, I knew the shadows would always linger. I still think about it sometimes, the choice not made, the shadows still whispering. But for now, I take one moment at a time. I guess that's all I can do.